All right, good afternoon. Here today is our Lenten lunch and learn a day late. Sorry about that for yesterday. As I posted on Facebook, I completely forgot. I had uh, our second oldest turned 12 yesterday, and then we also have spring break this week and everything going on. I just completely forgot, even with the alerts on my phone. I just totally missed it. So sorry about that. Um, do I'll do my best to do better next week, but we'll see. Today, I'm going to give it just a second longer for people to hop on if they want, if they're able, and then we can begin. And just as a reminder, if you type something into the chat, there's a chance then I can see it and respond live. But if not, that's okay. All right. So on Sunday, we talked about Jesus's journey from the north to the south. And so just as a reminder, I'm going to show you this map here. Actually, let me switch to the less detailed one. So this map here helps you to see. Let's see here. Make sure I can show you the way I want. All right. So this area here, that is Galilee. This is the north, and this is the Sea of Galilee here. And it comes down south through the Jordan River. And then we have Jerusalem in this area here. So this is the journey that we talked about on Sunday of Jesus making. Now, Jesus kind of takes a roundabout route across the Jordan into Jerusalem this way. But we talked about Samaria being this large portion in first century where you either go through it or you go around it. And the reasons you would go around it is that you don't like the people in Samaria. One author described them that the viewpoint would have been that they're almost like half-breeds, which is pretty harsh. But that they are, they're not fully Jewish and they're not fully Gentile. Making, just they're disparaged. They are not looked upon favorably at all. And so Jesus avoiding Samaria, it doesn't happen because he wants to go through it as often as possible. So it's really, when we're talking about avoiding Samaria, I'm talking about the other Israelites, the Jewish people who avoid Samaria, and the Samaritans avoid the Jews as often as possible too. So that was the 10 lepers last Sunday. Today, I wanted to pick up on another story of a Samaritan that may have come into your mind on Sunday when we talked about the Good Samaritan. Now, that story is also found in Luke, and it's also part of this. It's a parable told during the time that Jesus is traveling from the north to the south to Jerusalem for where he will die. And it begins in Luke 10, verse 25. So I'm going to read that here. Luke 10, verse 25 through about 37. I'll go to 37. Just then a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" He said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" He answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And he said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this and you will live." But wanting to justify himself, he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Now, by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came near him, and when he saw him, he was moved with pity. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, having poured oil and wine on them. Then he put him on his own animal and brought him to an inn to take care of him. The next day, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, 'Take care of him, and when I come back, I will repay you whatever more you spend.' Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" He said, the one who showed him mercy. Jesus said to him, go and do likewise. Now, again, we have here another story of a Samaritan, and what stands out are a couple of things. One, we have a lawyer that stands up to test Jesus. The lawyer would have been an expert in the law, would have known the Torah, and so he asked Jesus this question, and what does Jesus do, of course, is not answer it outright, but asks the lawyer the question back. What does the law say? If you want me to answer, he wants the lawyer to answer first. What does the law say? And he says here, from Deuteronomy and from the Torah, to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself, paraphrasing there. So we have the lawyer knows the answer to his question, but then he challenges Jesus further, maybe because he didn't get the full answer that he wanted, but he tests Jesus further and says, well, then who is my neighbor? Now, this is where we get, where Jesus's audience hearing this for the first time would have been just shocked. So they hear that there's a priest and a Levite. Now, the priest is responsible for, they're intermediaries between the people and to God. And then the Levites would have assisted in the temple. Now, some have said, well, they wanted to remain clean, so their purity laws. And there is strong indication that that may have been part of the story, but the purity laws would have set the Levites and the priests almost at the center. If you looked at them as like concentric circles, the priests and Levites had to remain clean. So to touch a dead body or touch a bloody body would have made it difficult for them to serve in the temple. But Jesus says that they're going down from down from Jerusalem. And literally, when we talk about going down, Jericho is about 400 feet below sea level, and Jerusalem was about 2,700 feet above sea level. And so when Jesus says they're on the road down to Jericho, that's not just, a way of talking, but literally it's down the road. They're going from the mountain of Jerusalem to the depths of Jericho. So we know that the priest and Levite are not on their way to the temple. Likely then not, the blood would not have been an issue. Purity laws probably aren't part of this. So if anything, we have two people that we would have expected to help. And so you've got the extremes. Like, okay, if the priest is there, of course he's going to help. Of course he's going to help this man who's been beaten. And we don't know anything about the man. Some translations say that he was Jewish, but Jesus really doesn't indicate that he's Jewish. But he's just this man beaten. He needs help, right? So the priest doesn't help. The Levite, okay, if we're hearing the story, well, then maybe the Levite will jump in and help. Maybe that's our answer. Well, then the Levite doesn't help. Well, then if you're listening to Jesus telling this parable and you're writing the rest of it in your head, okay, if none of them have helped, and we hear of another man coming down the road, finally, now this is the one that's going to help. And maybe we're writing it in our heads and the audience is listening saying, well, then he must just be just a regular Jewish person like me. Like he's the one that's going to help. And then, of course, well, the priests and Levites, they don't really live up to any good expectations. Yeah, sure. But then Jesus says, after all that, but a Samaritan while traveling came near him. Now, if you're hearing this and you're Jewish, you don't like the Samaritans. And maybe you're surprised to even hear a Samaritan in the story. And okay, he's not going to help. He's probably going to make things worse. He was moved to pity. Moved to pity. So we have the Samaritan, the unexpected, doing something here that would have been shocking. He helps the man, bandages his wounds, gives money so that when he returns, anything incurred by the innkeeper is taken care of. And it sounds like he'll settle things up when he gets back. Now, it comes back and Jesus asks the lawyer, who in this story was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? And the lawyer says, the one who showed him mercy. And the lawyer's right. But I wonder, too, if the lawyer had a hard time saying it out loud. Because he didn't say the Samaritan man. He just said the one who showed him mercy. And maybe the lawyer walked away thinking, I'm a little upset that that's the hero in the story, because Jesus does a few things. One, he makes the Samaritan the hero in the story. Again, the outcast being the primary hero in the story. But then he also throws it back onto the lawyer to say, not only is the man who was beaten your neighbor, but now you have to see the Samaritan as a neighbor too. You have to see him as an example of somebody you should follow. You have to see him like yourself. You have to imagine yourself as that Samaritan that you hate so much. So Jesus is doing a couple of things in this parable to really challenge. I love to just, we're running out of time, but a few things to notice too. Again, Luke, he set out on his gospel to write a thorough understanding of the gospel and what Jesus has done, and he places the story, I think, very intentionally between Jesus telling his disciples this in verse 24. For I tell you that many prophets and kings desired to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. He says, blessed are the eyes that see what you see. And then the next story is the story of Mary and Martha. I think there's a reminder here that these parables, that there's something to see. There's something to pay attention to. And then the story of Mary and Martha we have here, Martha distracted by all of her tasks and things that needed to happen, and Mary doing something different. And Jesus says, go and do likewise. Go and love your neighbor. Go and show compassion to others. And love your neighbor, even the ones that you don't like. It's quite a challenging parable, and beautiful in the way that Jesus turned the lawyer's challenge and question into something that, left the lawyer speechless, it looks like. So, I'm going to end here. This is, I could keep going. I really love this story, and there's a lot to discuss. Just a few things real quick. Again, for you who like geography and like to look at those things, I'm going to show you this map one more time, and then switch to a modern one. So you've got here, this is first century. We've got Jericho here, Jerusalem. Again, there's about 3,200 3,200 foot difference in elevation from Jerusalem to Jericho. So there's a road that literally goes down to Jericho. Jericho's below sea level, and of course the Dead Sea is too. We have Galilee in the north, and then I'm going to switch to this. This is a modern day. This, of course, has a lot more names on it, but we have Jerusalem here in the center, that red square, and then, of course, you see the road to Jericho here. This is the West Bank. When we hear news of, especially currently with the continued war in Israel, that's the West Bank to the north. To the south, then, is the small strip of land here called the Gaza Strip. And then to scroll back up, here's Jaffa. Remember Jaffa and the story of Jonah. And then we have up here, that's Lake Tiberias, or the Sea of Galilee. Now, just real quick, talking about Jesus traveling from the north to the south. Again, he starts in the area of Galilee. I had the chance to be there last year. I'm going to switch to this. This is a village. Oh, let me go back to this. Chorazim, which is right here at the northern part of the Sea of Galilee. This is a village that was there. And one of the things that fascinated me as I had the opportunity to visit this village was the paved roads there, the streets, the cobblestone streets that they had. And of course, the buildings that are there are gone, but you can see places where there were steps, and there's more of the road itself. But blocks of these rocks here obviously held something up. It was carved and pieced together and different pieces to look decorative. And then these corners. So, we might have a hard time connecting with these places, but These were the places that Jesus would have been around. This would have been like a wash basin or something to see there hold water. But again, the construction in these places are 2,000 years old, quite impressive, including there was a temple or synagogue. I'm not sure that there's enough information to go off of what all this was now, but again, pretty flat circles, or boulders and things that they had worked on. So anyway, that's where Jesus came from, was from the north down to Jerusalem. Dealt with the lepers, the one Samaritan who came back, and then of course today we talked about the Samaritan that we call good, the Good Samaritan. Well, again, thank you for joining me. Sorry for the 1 day delay, and next Tuesday we'll be back at it at noon. And next Tuesday we're going to be talking about a little bit more about Zacchaeus and Jesus's final week. So I hope you have the opportunity to join us then. Well, have a great day.